This episode of Total Drama Reviews contains clips from Total Drama Action. I do not own Total Drama Action. All rights go to FreshTV. Remember to be civil and do not be me in the comments. Seriously, it can get really messed up. Carpe diem, my name is Ultranatic, a lover of animation and reality shows, something you're likely familiar with from my long-running series of Total Drama Reviews. In this series, I look over every episode of Total Drama individually to see where it works, does it work, and if it stands on its own as a good cartoon. And after over a year and a half of navigating through the second season, Total Drama Action, I finally finished watching and reviewing every episode of said season. But before we talk about how well this season did in isolation, I feel it's appropriate to compare it to the season that came before it, Total Drama Island. Mom and Dad, I'm doing fine. Now, even taking different locations out of the equation, these seasons were incredibly different. I liked the first season, but let's be real, it was kind of a slow season. I know, that's rich coming from me, but I'm not calling the season boring per se. Kinda hard to do that when you have the word drama in the title. But the plot threads took a lot more time to develop, and the comedy, while often solid, wasn't exactly at the same pace as something like Animaniacs most of the time. However, it was the first season, you gotta give them time to grow. And that's exactly what the second season showed a lot of. Growth. The humor was even quicker, it took more chances, and the storylines were more expedient. But does that mean Total Drama Action was better than the first season? Well, speaking only for myself, I think, yeah, it was a little bit better. And also a little bit worse. Yes, I can hold both opinions simultaneously. How do I explain this? This season definitely had a lot more than Total Drama Island. More of what, you may ask? Everything. There was a lot more of everything. Comparing Total Drama Island and Total Drama Action is like comparing The Matrix to Matrix Reloaded. The former gained its cult following by being groundbreaking and engaging, even if somewhat flawed. And the latter doing a lot of the exact same thing, except bigger and faster. Honestly, to a fault, and by my observations, winning fewer people over in the process. But I'm not sure how fair that is. When this season was good, it was sometimes better than the first season, and honestly more frequently too. But when it was bad, its level of bad magnified about the same amount. But in what specific areas did this season improve, and where did it worsen? Well, that's what this video is for. So let's begin this countdown of the top 5 worst and best episodes of Total Drama Action. Man, just like last time, we gotta tear apart the duds before we examine the gems. But first, a few things to address. Like last time, my thoughts on these episodes won't be super detailed because I have whole reviews on them already. So if you want more info on why these episodes appear where they do on the list, you can check those out. And keep in mind, these thoughts are just my thoughts. If you disagree on where I put an episode on this list, that's fine. These are just my opinions on where Total Drama Action faltered and then where it flourished. But before I get into the top 5 worst, I gave an honorable mention for my best list last time, but no dishonorable mention for the worst. So, in the spirit of fairness, let's knock one of those out right now. This is my dishonorable mention. The story arc of Trent's descent. No, I'm not referring to the first Aftermath special with the similar name. I'm referring to the actual storyline where we see Trent, the bland but inoffensive wigwag of this show, become a weird, desperate, unsettling stand towards his then love interest Gwen. So I'm specifically referring to the following episodes: Riot on Set, Beach Blanket Bogus, and 310 to Crazy Town. These episodes don't make the list proper because I don't hate everything about those episodes. In fact, I mentioned liking about as much as I dislike. The only parts where I have to give the biggest downvote to is Trent's behavior.
Hey, new best friends, how do you like that? You gonna cry together, you punk wannabes?
Now, I'm sure putting just an entire plot thread on a list of worst episodes might be seen as cheating to some of y'all, since I wouldn't call the overall episodes bad, but that's why they're not on the list proper and instead grouped together as my dishonorable mention. And can you blame me that much? Who on earth liked this storyline?
What girl doesn't love it when a dude helps her out? Holds a door, opens a pickle jar, helps her win $1 million competition.
Next to Chef and DJ's alliance and the hatred Lashana got mid-season, it's one of the worst I've seen in the entire show. I'll grant that it gave an actual personality to Trent, but it kind of went overboard in regards to that. I guess that's a study in contrast. Which would you prefer? Something boring but harder to hate? Or something very easy to hate but at least showing some form of passion? I guess I prefer the latter, but that doesn't mean I actually enjoy it. It was uncomfortable to watch and probably warranting of its own restraining order, because I don't think I ever want to see this crap ever again.
The thing is, if Gwen wants to win, why is it unethical for me to help her? I'm Trent first and a killer grip second.
Number 5. 2008 A Space Owen. I'm a man of many mistakes, several of which I've highlighted before. Losing count on the casualty counter, mispronouncing the title superhero, but the mistake I'm most unhappy with is going way too easy on this episode when I first talked about it, where our final 5 have to do 2 endurance challenges in outer space setting. That sounds cool, and it even had some potential with the comedy, at least in the first act, but it also had poor explanations on how the challenges were supposed to work, a lot of pointless filler, and especially the awful highlight of the only plot thread this season I had more problems with than Trent's descent, Beth and her boyfriend Brady.
Just one of the many pluses of being a kept woman.
If you want my thoughts on that storyline, which I thoroughly stomped in the ground, my review of Masters of Disasters is where I really pummel it. But if you want that storyline at its worst, it's here. As Brady tries to make their relationship more official with the gift of a candy ring, hey, it's sweet in some regard, and Beth uses that gift trying to entice Harold, who she suspects having a crush on her.
Harold, for the last time, I'm off the market.
What are you doing?
Kiss me.
What?
Sam doesn't have to know.
I think Beth's behavior surrounding her boyfriend is absolutely disgusting, even taking out this scene.
You made your point, Harold. I'm calling it off with Brady and giving us a try.
Only the second grossest thing Beth did this season. We'll address the other later. And her alliance with Courtney being pointless, even if some decent conflict came from it. And you've got a mission into outer space that even Sandra Bullock would turn down.
That was totally disgusting. How could you do that to me?
Number 4. Celebrity Manhunt's Total Drama Action Reunion Special. I know this one is still fresh for most of you, and I feel bad for rubbing salt in this wound, especially since I know there are people who like this special, but I get nothing from being dishonest about my opinion, so here it goes. I think this special is not just overrated, but actively trying to sabotage the popularity of Total Drama. Okay, maybe that's harsh, but it really does seem like it to me, because in this special we see the contestants post Total Drama Action going through their own personal lives and being invaded by another fame-hungry show that won't leave people alone. But that's a job. I can kind of understand that. What I can't understand is why these characters get portrayed the way they do. Because if I want the cringe version of these characters, I'd ask for it, and I'm not. So to see awkward feuds and misdemeanors carried out by our favorite characters in the most toe-curling fashion seriously got under my skin.
Like, oh my gosh! No singing? That is so sad.
I lost my earring. It's a hoop with a horse.
Add to that depressingly cliched and depressing in general plot of these characters losing their popularity and having to be motivated to get it back, and you have a narrative that was never going to win me over. Now with that said, it's probably only half the episode I truly hate. Because once new character Sierra gives her big speech, everything seems to turn around. With a thrilling climax and even an exciting idea for the third season, more on that to come. And even Sierra's first appearance was surprisingly favorable. Will it stay that way? Only time will tell, but at least she got some dignity in her first episode. Which is more than I can say for the rest of the cast here. Follow the example of Eva, and try your best to avoid the fame these guys get. Preferably without punching out a camera.
What? No way! I'm gonna lose it!
Number 3. Rock and Rule. Was there ever any doubt on this one? The one thing consistent about this season everyone says is the worst moment from it is the elimination from Rock and Rule. In this episode where the cast tackle rockumentaries, it has one of the most despised eliminations of Lindsay at the end. She accidentally votes herself off. Just barely gained the majority of the votes in the process. That is absolute horseshit. Actually, the sad thing is, maybe it isn't. Oh, Lindsay has moments of being truly smart in this show, but this episode actually displays her at her most annoyingly stupid.
I don't know how to play the guitar. Is it anything like the recorder? I can play the recorder. Is a biopic kind of like a toothpick? Because I could use one right now.
You can stop massacring that song.
I was not mascaraing anything except my eyelashes, Courtney.
Oh, except for one moment at the end where she's smart in the strategic talks to get rid of Duncan, but that becomes null and void with the blunder she makes after the fact. But that's not the only thing wrong with this episode. You got weird segues, challenges with poorly conceived rules, and an ear-bleeding song sung by Lindsay at the beginning. So with marks that huge against it, how is this episode not higher on this list? Well, the second act where they run the red carpet was still entertaining. Seeing Courtney constantly get silver was pretty satisfying, and I liked Owen coming back to the game. As little impact as it made and as little reason as there was for him being there. Does any of that save the episode? Not even a little bit. I think Rock and Rule was some kind of monster that should have never been created.
You know what I read? This one doesn't really go with my outfit.
Number 2. Dial M for merger. I'm actually kind of surprised with how high this episode made it on the list. I mean, yeah, it gave us that killer shirt I wear in all of my total drama reviews now, and it's not like the episode is devoid of good character or jokes, because it's not. But upon rewatching it, I found what it was devoid of was purpose. In this episode, the characters, well, merged to playing individually, with their first challenge being spy themed. That's another movie genre with a lot of potential for good challenges and drama, and if memory serves, my review of the episode wasn't that negative, though it certainly wasn't positive either, with my biggest complaints being some weird inclusions that mess with the tone of the episode, and Courtney earning her rock bottom reputation here as well. And while I still dislike those aspects, they're not why this episode is so low. So why is it so low then? Because I compare what this episode did for this season to what Brunch of Disgustingness did for the first. I'm not saying that because they both occur around the halfway point. That's purely a coincidence. I'm saying it because if you want the most easily skippable episode of the entire season, you're looking at it. I do think this is better than Brunch of Disgustingness by default, if nothing else. But that was the first comparison Dial M for Merger brought me to. While this season had several more non-elimination episodes than the first, where some of them were as entertaining as Camp Castaways, this one fell on the other end of that spectrum. Even with some decent humor and character, I can't think of much to return to with this episode, especially since very little continuity is carried forward forward from it. Courtney makes a life-threatening deal to split the $1 million, which gets dropped by the end. And LaShawn forms an alliance with Duncan Harold that is freaking gonzo by next episode. I guess some of Justin's character progression is expanded on in the coming episodes, but that's me grasping at straws. If you took out this episode and just had the merge start at Superhero, we'd be much better off. Otherwise, if you called me beat me about this episode's mission, I'd just give the same response as Courtney's lawyers.
Out of office reply? Nobody sends Courtney an out of office reply.
And the #1 worst episode of Total Drama Action is the Chef Shank Redemption. You all knew it was coming. It's almost pointless to go over what I hate about this episode. It's where the characters take part in the prison escape challenge, all while Gwen is throwing said challenge, to level the karma offset by her ex-boyfriend Trent, who threw challenges for his own team the past few episodes. I'll get what little positives I have for this episode out of the way right now. Izzy returns, automatic thumbs up, DJ is as best, Gwen is pretty good too, despite doing things in the episode I shouldn't approve of, and I think the actual challenge setup is very well constructed. So for all of those reasons, this episode is at least less bad than Brunch of Disgustingness was. I'd still rather do literal time behind bars than to ever watch this again. If you want the absolute worst of every storyline this season, you'll get the earliest established ones here. Trent might not be around, but his breakup with Gwen is still fresh in people's memories. You got Chef and DJ's terrible alliance, and the worst of the grips from all throughout the season on full display. Justin's laziness, best disgusting comments spewing from her mouth.
Wow, Gwen, you're going even faster than Trent ever could.
Along with disgusting items being put in there.
Thanks! My dad would have killed me.
And Owen and Lindsay essentially enabling both of them. I'm also not a huge fan of Heather here.
Isn't it great, Gwen? We're totally going to win, Gwen.
Not that she has no reason to be as angry as she is towards Gwen, she does. But man, does she rub it in Gwen's face too much this episode.
Sorry, Gwen. You're not the winner. You lost, so you're a loser. It's just logic.
Condescending bench.
I still think she treats Gwen better than the Grips did at least, but that was as much a given as this episode making the list. I say we lock this episode up and throw away the key, because I think the Chef Shank Redemption is hands down the #1 worst episode of Total Drama Action.
I can't take another second.
So that was the worst of this season for me, and I'm happy we got that out of the way, because now we get to tackle the best list, and thankfully there were a lot more candidates for that portion of this list than the first. Sorta, let me explain. While I can think of several episodes I remember fondly, most of them weren't 100% great, but more 89% great. Just barely not making an A grade, but being good enough to where if it came on television, I'd have the impulse to keep watching. But where narrowing down my worst list took me almost no time at all, this took me much more time simply because there were so many more candidates. That's a good sign in and of itself. But again, before I praise my top 5, let's first give a shout out to my very own honorable mention. $1 million BC. I know I made some gripes in this review, but they were pretty minor in the grand scope of the episode, which uses the genre of prehistoric movies to challenge the primal side of our contestants. We do get the introduction of how spoon-fed new addition to the season Courtney is, but it's kind of a blip in the plot. She still has to earn her win this episode, and she genuinely does. But not without the narrative constantly dumping on her as well.
She's so bossy. And it's not like we needed another know-it-all on the show.
She gets very little love. Even her boyfriend admits to his pet peeves with her.
I was a CIT, you know.
Oh, she is not back on that again.
She is a total drama queen.
But you know they still care about each other. They just rather keep the competition in the forefront, which I respect. On top of that, the challenges give some clever homages to Survivor. We see those creative monsters from Boney Island. And even if this episode barely progresses any story arcs within the season, I can forgive that because the humor and conflict is incredibly entertaining. But the fact it barely progresses any storylines is why it isn't on the best list officially. It does well despite being filler, but there were other filler episodes that I thought were even better, making this seem just a bit weaker. But only fractionally. I still love watching everything that happens with this premise. So for an episode I should have found primitive, it proved to be more advanced than it had any right to be.
That was my high point of the competition. Maybe my whole life.
Number 5. Top Dog. Another episode that is better than I could have expected with this setup. Its focus is on the animal buddy genre. That is such a half-assed idea for a movie theme, it should have been dead on arrival, with our characters having to pair up with an animal for the challenges they're faced with. And for about half the episode, the cast is separated, so there isn't even much of a dynamic they can play off of. Or so I figured, but with the smart choices for which animal these characters pair up with, as well as what specifically each character should be going through on their own this episode, it managed to shine just from the personality of the contestants. Courtney being the dominating force, Duncan being the tired and exasperated coma victim, Owen actually mastering his recent status as the mole within the cast, and even Beth now having to fend for herself, helping her come across as more innocent, while still making the final strategic blow to the biggest threat in the game, Courtney.
Courtney, since Beth and Duncan both voted for you, it's time for your ride home.
Yeah, given how ballsy it was for both her and Duncan to vote off Courtney, knowing the flack they get from her, they kinda earned their final 2 spots, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of these characters. So with how bare bones this episode started out, it seems it developed into a very effective treat that anyone would enjoy for a reward.
It's like you're our equals. I mean, you're superior.
Number 4. Ocean's 8 or 9. Yeah, if you never got bored with Courtney this season, you were never gonna like this episode, as she earns her spot into the game halfway through the season due to suing the show over the various injustices that occurred to her from it.
She got booted out fair and square.
Myself and the law firm of Fleckman, Cohen, and Strauss would beg to differ. We filed a wrongful dismissal lawsuit against the producers. And won.
And aside from that, maybe I could see the elimination of Owen as an infraction against this episode too. But honestly, neither of those two things bothered me enough to dislike the episode, where our characters compete in a bank heist challenge to see if they can get away with robbery. It's actually got a lot of overlapping storylines that somehow balances really well. Not just Courtney returning, as well as the reaction she gets from Duncan and her new team, but there's more of the aftermath from LaShawna's lie.
Can you tell me why we're even trying to get LaShawna out? I don't need a bunch of stupid prop equipment to rob a bank.
Owen going through withdrawal from eating.
People shouldn't make me hungry. You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry.
And even Courtney dealing with how useless her own team is.
Hand modeling is one of the things that put me on the map.
Obviously, that would be the map of Uselessville. How did I get stuck over here?
Yeah, I agree with how lackluster the grips were. She was right on the money. And even Owen, as forced as his boot kinda was, came across as very heartwarming, and had the execution of his exit been a bit smarter, I would have otherwise found warranting given what happens during the challenge. So while maybe not the perfect crime, the episode otherwise had a pretty successful heist.
I knew I could win this, even with a team of complete duds.
Number 3. The Aftermath 3, a win or lose. Yeah, kind of remarkable I'd include an Aftermath special in the mix here, especially considering...
You know what they say, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips.
But I stand by it, this episode is really, really solid. One could argue the Aftermath episodes aren't that essential to the overall season. They're outside the gameplay and are just used to give closure to storylines that should have been taken care of in season. And while that's mostly true, this Aftermath gave us one of the most effective endings to any story arc. One not established during the game, because the one storyline I haven't mentioned yet that no one liked from this season was Jeff McClane, where he begins acting like Chris McClane, but with an added party guy persona over it.
Can I help it if I take my job seriously? Maybe you should try.
And this Mr. Hyde style turn was so off-putting that no one was on board with it. Not even the writers, I don't think. Because here, Jeff's asshole behavior catches up with him.
Now what is your problem? You used to be sweeter than honey. Now you're getting all kinds of nasty.
He tries causing more pain and misery, but fails spectacularly. And even Bridget breaks up with him and straps him to the electric chair to teach him a lesson.
This is all me, all the way.
Yeah, that's incredibly cathartic. I wish the original Chris had treatment like this. Beyond that, Owen, Lashana, and Heather have good appearances, and the humor, in general, makes a solid landing. My only true gripe is the slow build-up, as not much happens in the first 4 minutes of the episode. But once you get past that, this Aftermath goes above and beyond with its entertainment value, giving me a bigger shock than any contestant to sit in that chair.
Maybe there's a bit of a softie left in there after all.
Number 2. Full Metal Drama. What can I say? This show just nails its military-themed episodes. It gives the appropriate amount of action and conflict for the genre, the comedy is spot on, and most of the characters are shown in the best light possible. Harold and Duncan have their differences, which actually makes sense. Justin finally gets the treatment he deserves for not doing anything all season.
There's a scratch. My face can't continue to take all this abuse. I'm losing it.
Are you buying this? Nope.
And then there's Admiral Lindsay, her hotness.
Be strong. Be fierce. Be ferocious. Go and fight for that trunk like it's Boxing Day and you're fighting for the cutest pair of yoga pants.
She might not be an effective officer, but man is she a great character here. She's still Lindsay in that she's sweet, but unfortunately dim-witted. But she's also more authoritative without feeling like a completely different character.
Admiral Lindsay decrees that you will get up and work on this challenge.
Although I do find it peculiar how she's not targeted for elimination here despite really taking charge. When in the horror movie episode, she was almost voted out because she was seen as too bossy.
Why would people be mad at me? You were a little bothy. It's called leadership.
But at least they corrected that mistake. And sure, the continuity is kind of wonky, but that problem only gets in the way when nothing else is enjoyable. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of Full Metal Drama. Honestly, this episode should be number 1 because it has less flaws than my number 1 spot. I'll explain that shortly, but number 1 or not, this episode deserves the highest of honors and the longest of salutes.
What can I say? You did good. You did real good.
And the number 1 best episode of Total Drama Action is Get a Clue. I'm biased, I'm sorry, but this is my favorite episode of the season. What flaws does it have over the episode before it? The fact that it's a non-elimination and very little is developed in regards to overarching stories. You need to watch Full Metal Drama to know what happens in the season, but you can skip Get a Clue. I have no idea why you want to though, because as filler episodes go, I'm not sure anything's going to top this one. I think it's obvious what movie genre is being focused on, but I'll say it anyways, murder mysteries. I love that genre, and the story in this episode does it remarkable justice. With Chris being murdered on a train, see, already great start, and our characters all either trying to find out who done it or escape off the train. Is everything perfect? No, Courtney is pretty annoying, and Beth isn't exactly the best friend to Lindsay.
2 heads are better than 1, but 3 heads are better than 2. And any head is probably better than Lindsay's.
Yo, Beth ain't it. I was like, oh, I know.
And both get their comeuppance in the episode.
The reward that Lindsay will be enjoying tonight is a night at the movies with a friend of her choice.
Oh, it's been so long since I've been to the movies. Sorry that we all accused you.
Happens all the time.
Want to go to the movies with me?
And even when they're not likable, those moments of shame do make them engaging. Duncan is overall fine, and Harold and Lindsay are seen at their finest here. Especially in how Lindsay solves the mystery despite being looked down on throughout the episode. Plus, the comedy is top-notch, the references are clever, and even them poking fun at the tropes in genre are well executed.
Next, you'll be staying with Professor Plum in the conservatory with a bacon sandwich.
What else can I say? I love the hell out of this episode, and I'd watch it any time of the year. Get a clue. The #1 best episode of Total Drama Action.
I love this thing.
And that was my top 5 worst and best episodes of Total Drama Action. I hope you enjoyed it because unfortunately, that's gonna be it for me for a while. I have some stuff in my personal life I need to take care of, but I hope to return to all of you soon with more Total Drama reviews, because the next time you see me, we're gonna be on a whirlwind adventure that everyone's already sung their praises for.
Come fly with us. Come fly with us.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go.